Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are sorry for the late start. We make machines. At times, the machines decide to play fast one on us. However, we are live and are going to be discussing what was planned for this evening of this evening's edition of the program. The first for this week, we are going to be looking at the coalition of Cameroon Federalist groups and activists who have launched a platform. During a press conference that took place Saturday, they announced to the world that they were ready to harness their energies together to push for the reinstitution of federation in Cameroon. This evening, we're going to be talking with some of them who took part in Saturday's edition of the press conference to tell us what they are up to and how far they are ready to go. We are in the studio with Fabrice Lena. He is a member of the coalition of Cameroon's Federalist group and activist. He is also the Secretary General of the PAP party. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thank you very much for having me once more in Prime Hour. I want to greet my co-panelists, and I want to send special greetings to all the working group members of coalition of Cameroon Federalists, activists, and groups and activists. Special greetings to Dr. Simon Munzu, to Professor Ben Aki, to Professor Vic Wenge, to Dr. Gabila Nuba, to Comrade Richard Ndifor, who will be joining me from through Skype, to all the people that are fighting for the return of federalism in Cameroon, not forgetting political parties that are also fighting for federalism, like the Popular Action Party, like the SDF, opinion holders and civil society activists like Agbobala. We want to say that it is time we come up with something tangible that can enable us to have a Cameroon that all of us deserve and all of us want, because we need to drift from illusion to feasible aspects, to feasible things, to things that are pragmatic. We have to come out with projects that we can realize, things that we can have support from the international community. That is why we have this evening and this opportunity with Mr. Liu to dissect and detail what it's contained in the coalition of Cameroon Federalist groups and activists. Thank you very much for having me this evening.
You say it's time to come out of illusions. What do you mean by that?
When I mean by come out of illusions, I will want to say that there is a lot that is ongoing in this issue of the Anglophone crisis, as some people call it, others say Southern Cameroon War of Independence, and so on and so forth. The illusion here, Mr. Liu, is that many people don't know how diplomacy operates. Many people don't even know what it takes to liberate a people. Many people don't know what is called liberation war or independence. Many people don't even know the characteristics of the leaders that are supposed to take people through independence. And many people are blind to the challenges, the reality, the diversity, and even those aspects of the constitution and history that forbid separation. And some of these things are not by wish, but it is realities of the existing circumstance of the country itself. So this is why we are here to educate the people and to let the people understand that if they were to say separation, every Southern Cameroonian in Cameroon or out of Cameroon will vote for that. But it is different from what is actually the reality that can be accepted by the existing government and the existing international community whose missions are being represented in the country. So the illusion here is the illusion of propaganda that is carried out by people who know the truth but are telling the people the lies.
Okay, we're also in the company of Lucas. He's a member of the civil society running a non-governmental organization out there in Cameroon, hosting many IDP children who are fleeing from wars. At least if there is someone who is living the consequences of the ongoing crisis in the Southwest and Northwest region, he should be the one all the way from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, Fabrice Lena. And good evening to all the viewers of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. I want to call on those who are by their TV sets not to leave, because what we will be discussing tonight, it's something which most of the people out there will not want to listen to it, because like Fabrice said, Indeed, we have lived in illusion for long, and I know it's really going to be difficult. But what we need to know here is we are living in a war which, for those who still think that the UN has got the key with regards to the ongoing crisis, please, I want to beg of you, it is time for us to be more rational, and it is time for us to put heads together and see, because everybody born of Cameroon, everybody living in the northwest and southwest region, holding that Anglophone identity, has a right to whatsoever they have got to say. And what I want the viewers to know is that do not think that you have monopoly of the solution with regards to the ongoing, what I call the senseless war, because the number of persons who are dying daily, the number of children who are unable to go to school daily, you do not actually bear the brunt. They really do bear the brunt. So I would like to call on the Cameroon diaspora, especially the Anglophones. It is time for us to look at each other face to face and say the truth. Coming to the studio this evening, there is something I realized before leaving Boya. A young woman walked up to me with a son who had been close to death, a child who had undergone some of the difficulties we are talking about. The lady herself she had undergone surgery on the arm, and she presented it to me, telling me the stakes, the situation from where she is coming from. Then when I saw it, it was then I knew. She cried and said, even that to buy a book for the son to begin classes, it's not there. Then I told her, get that child ready, because tomorrow, the first thing in the morning, I want to see that child registered in the center and attending classes. So if you think what is happening in Cameroon and what is happening in the northwest and southwest is a situation for you to sit maybe in what we call your comfort zone, because some of you may be presenting situations claiming it's your comfort zone, but you yourself, you are not in that comfort zone. Bearing in mind that you have restrictions which had to be put by your actions, you have restrictions which had to be put by the laws within the country in which we find ourselves, and the UN, the AU, and most of the partners of Cameroon. I want the viewers to know that at this point in time, they have a total different view with regards to what is happening on the ground. And I'd like to call on the Anglophone elites. I want to say that this will be an appeal to the Anglophone elite. Please, you have the key to this. You have the key to the solution of this ongoing senseless war, provided you have the mind of the people. If the people did give you that mandate you are holding, be it the parliamentarian, be it that person who is working in that parastatal, please, it is time for us to come back and reassess that this is getting to the 6th year. Are we truly the Anglophones we had wanted to be when we decided to leave the Eastern House of Nigeria? Are we truly the Anglophones we want to be when we all decided that we should come back and reunite with East Cameroon? Are we truly that Cameroon that we had wanted to be before the 2016?
We also are in the company of Ndifor Richard, fervent activist and a member of the coalition of Cameroon's Federalist groups and activists, which was launched on Saturday. And Ndifor Richard, good evening and welcome. I also understand that you are, yes, a supporter of the Federalist movement for a very long time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leonard. Thanks for having me. Good evening to Fabrice, and good evening to Lucas and the rest of the viewers out there. I am elated with what the previous speakers just indicated, and I will just cue in from there to say that for a very long time we have been living with the impression and with what Fabrice called illusion, and rightly so too, that we are going to be having some kind of independence and anytime soon. While we have already established, the first two speakers have already established that gaining independence is an illusion, I would not want to overemphasize on that again, but to go further to look on the other side of it, which is on the side of the government, so to speak, which keeps on the thinking that they can use force and suppress the idea and the idea of unity or unity state on the people and succeed in ending the war in the northwest and southwest region. It is true that they may use the kind of intimidation and weapons and maybe to some extent to quell down the crisis, but to say that in the long run a unitary system of government, given the diversity that we have in Cameroon, the ethnic diversity, the linguistic diversity, and all of that, we cannot live in a unitary system of government peacefully, because the kind of peace that they preach and the way they think that by just crushing maybe the separatists, they will to some extent end the grievances of the people of the Northwest and Southwest, that is far-fetched. And as we have already started seeing from other parts of the country, other ethnic groups and other regions have already started coming up with complaints and with grievances. That is to tell you that the unitary system of government cannot work in a dispensation where we have different ethnic groups, where we have people speaking different languages. And so the federal system of government is the most unique form of government that can guarantee peace, that can ensure that people take their own responsibility in their hands, that they govern themselves, and they may be able to realize their own they may have their own they may have their own reality on the ground. So what I want to suggest here is that the coalition for federalist movement in Cameroon, what we are doing is that we want to look at the constitutional and historical aspect of it. To say that in 1961, by the time Southern Cameroon gained independence, it was agreed that the union between the two territories was going to be on the basis of a federalist system of government. And it was inscribed in Article 47 of that constitution that any attempt to dissolve the federal system of government, either through parliament or through even a proposal in parliament, shall be inadmissible. Just to say that the 1972 referendum that dissolved the federal system of government was a violation of the 1972 constitution. And so until we go back to the 1972 constitution and review the 1972 referendum and review what happened and go back to the 1961 constitution, we will keep on having this same problem. A lot of international boards, international organizations have proposed that the solution to this problem lies with the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is the solution of the federal.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ndifor Richard, but you are talking about going back to 1972. Do you also understand that many things have evolved? It's like getting married to a lady 20, 30 years ago and expect things to be as they were 30 years ago. Maybe you bought a tin of oil at 5,000 francs. Today, that tin of oil may now cost at 30,000 francs. Many things have come along, maybe children and a host of others. Do you actually think that things that obtained in 1972 would still be the same today?
Bernard, we are talking here about a constitution. We are talking here about law. We are talking about the principles that brought us together, the contract that brought British Southern Cameroons, which is today we call it Southern Cameroons, or some people choose to call it Ambazonia. This is the document, the contract that brought Southern Cameroons into a union with La République du Cameroun. And the basis of that union was a federation. When you talk of what evolved from 1960 to now, America has been a federation that was established more than 100 years ago, and it is still a federation today. So I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, since
when things evolve, it does not mean that we violate.
Doctor,
yes, Leonard.
Ndifor, you'd say you are comparing what obtains in Cameroon to what is happening in the United States of America. They did not start as the number of states that they have today. It started from a number and they have evolved. To say that, I'm saying that 1961, 1972, things might have evolved. We don't have the number of states that the United States set up.
The unique aspect of this is that we have a constitution on which was legally binding to us. we have a law, we have a constitution. Do we just, what you're suggesting, are you just suggesting that we just violate the constitution because things have evolved? Is that what you're suggesting? When things evolve, that does not mean that we violate the basic laws, the basic principles, the contract to which the union between the two territories came together. So we are saying that we have a fundamental legal principle, law, that was put in place in 1961, that bind the two territories. If there was the need for that law to be changed, that document, the 1961 Constitution, was to be the basis on which any changes was to happen. It was not for the regime in Yaoundé to violate that law with the pretext that things have evolved. When things evolved, you don't violate the law. You walk on the basis of what the law is. Yes.
Yeah, Ndifor Richard, I'm not suggesting, I'm asking a question so that you make your points clearer. I'm not suggesting, exactly. I'm not part of the panelists, I'm just asking questions, and I will keep asking the questions so that people can understand better. So I'm not part of the panelists. Fabrice Lena.
I agree with you, Lena.
Yes. Why was it so important for this press conference, for this platform to be created at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Leo, it was imperative for us to come up with this because at a particular time, we observed that there is a certain voice that is lacking in this whole crisis issue in the country. And the voice that is lacking is the middle voice, the voice of those who choose to fight by advocacy, with words, with non-violent means. Those who have said that the guns cannot solve the problem, be it on the side of the government or the separatists. Because the guns, we have seen and are seeing that it is helping to make the situation worse on daily basis. As chaotic as the Yaoundé regime is in their organization of military in the northwest and southwest, we are seeing that the separatists on their own side are also very chaotic in their different factions, in their way of going about their liberation agenda. Very, very chaotic. Because what they are doing is not what people like Agostinho Neto did before they liberated Mozambique. They had factions, but they had to collaborate in order that, I remember in 1975, Agostinho Neto, Jonas Savimbi, and
that's in Angola.
Yes, in Angola, and I think the three guys had to come together to sign an accord for the interest of their country, even when the three of them did not want to see each other. But in our own situation, any initiative of peace that want to come up, it is sabotage. Any idea that does not tally with what some people say, it is wrong idea, or it is not what is going to help the people. You know, you do not impose when you want to fight for people. You make the support to come natural and voluntary, like it was in 2016 and 17, when the people came out en masse to protest for reforms, to protest, to discuss about the form of state, to protest, to say that Yaoundé regime had marginalized the people of Southern Cameroon, to protest that things should be done rightly. But today what we are seeing, it is not the foundations that were laid in 2016 and 17, Mr. Liu. It is not the foundation, and when things are going wrong, it is imperative that the people who are observing keenly, leading the people to the right track of justice, truth, and building a society that will be encompassing of human beings and not beasts, not brute beasts. We have to create an alternative voice. It is in this light that the conversations unfolding between the members of the present working group, I'm talking about Dr. Munzu, Madame Renatu, Professor Benaki, Professor Wanga, Mr. Shete Kingsley, and Dr. Eseme, all of us try to come together and say, but at this point in time, we need an alternative voice. We need a middle voice. We need something different to propose and put on the table. And let Cameroonians judge for themselves, because this is an alternative that its method, its strategies, its vision is non-violence. And it is constitutional, it is historical, and it bases its argument on contemporary challenges. What are we talking about contemporary challenges? When we look at the way the diplomatic world is functioning today, Mr. Liu, it will be difficult for the agenda of separation to be in the UN anytime soon. There are many people on Saturday when we were at the press conference, they were reacting on the Facebook page that were shared in the Facebook page of Coalition of Cameroon Federalists, activists and groups, that the CDN report, the AGC report, Cameroon Initiative Inclusive Talk report, and so many other reports prove that a greater percentage of Southern Cameroonians want independence. This is a natural thing that will not be argued. We don't need to argue about that. Because if the option that was denied of the people during the plebiscite in 1961 comes back today, even the ministers in Yaoundé will vote for separation, to have an autonomous state, an independent state. The problem is that, how feasible is that? How possible is that? Because as far as Cameroon is concerned in the international community, the Anglophone crisis had never been an issue of discussion. In ECAS, ECAS is the smallest regional state organization that Cameroon belongs to, where UN will be taking a report about Anglophone crisis from. It has never been discussed in the AU, and not to talk about the UN. Cameroon had been admitted as a member of United Nations Human Rights Council with the human rights violations that are increasing. How do you explain this? And I also want to make a comment on the different polls. Do not forget that English Cameroon for a United Cameroon, Anglophone General Conference, Cameroon Initiative Inclusive Talk, there are reports on the issue of separation when it comes to the question of, do you want separation by war? The number of percentage falls. You see that people are skeptical to say that they want separation by war, but people actually want separation. Now, how do you want the separation? Because we are seeing that the consequences of the war is not enabling the population to support the war for long. Because if we actually want separation by war, then we should be prepared to live like Palestine or Afghanistan for a 30 years, 40 years, 50 years war. Because that is the reality. We are talking out of experience after meeting with experts in conflict resolution, conflict management, and diplomatic missions, and people who have worked in the United Nations. Remember, Dr. Munzu had worked in the United Nations. Like so when most of the time when he talks, people feel that he's talking out of air. No, he knows what is diplomacy and what it takes for people's case to be put in the agenda of the United Nations for discussion. The United Nations Security Council. I even want to make a remark here, Mr. Liu. In 2018, when Sisiku, Ayub Tabe and co were arrested in Nigeria and extradited to Cameroon, the first people to vomit Sisiku and Ayub Tabe were the diasporan leaders who now hijacked the crisis to be their personal, like they are more patriotic than any other Southern Cameroonian about the liberation of Southern Cameroon. In Ghana, before the independence of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah was voted in prison. He was voted in prison. That means the dedication and loyalty of a people to their leader, and a unique leader, the vision bearer of a cause, is very, very important. I can tell you Sisiku Ayub Tabe's strategies and ways that he was using in this conflict and this struggle was unique. Because at a particular time when soldiers were beheaded by some armed group, he condemned it in a communique. In those days, before he was arrested, he condemned violations that were coming from his own boys. And that is a leader. Because you are a leader, you are not supposed to hide the crimes of collaborators. You are not supposed to condone human rights violations. There is no diplomat, Mr. Liu, that you will take the Anglophone case and go to when you want to advocate and you begin to call some separatist group names and some of the activities that they are doing on ground, and they will listen to you. Because they will say, but how will you make the case of someone who keeps the head of somebody on the stone and cut? How are you going to obey such a government? And we should not be ignorant of the internal squabbles that is existing on ground amongst the people who are struggling to liberate the people.
Have you met some of these diplomats in Yaoundé, and what are they telling you? Is that, are you actually telling the world what they told you, or you are imagining what you're saying?
Mr. Leo, I am not imagining. Okay. At least for the past 5 years, if they are talking of young people that have been deep into this struggle, I should be mentioned, because after having worked as a volunteer in so many NGOs, civil society activists, participating in so many protests, I have been consulted severally by different organizations to give my opinion about what is happening, and in the opinion given, we are exchanging ideas. Notwithstanding, I have been in contact with so many of the leaders, be it political, civil society, and diplomats, who are the main actors of this crisis, who tells you, look, you know, a liberation struggle have certain dynamics that it takes. But we are not seeing that dynamic here. And it's true. I remember the last time when we wanted to talk here about coalition for dialogue and negotiation, some people just came out and started, it cannot work. So these people are this, these people are that. If you want to criticize everything and be so pessimistic about other people's point of view, to the extent that the social media now is a place of ridiculing some people and reducing them to nothing simply because they do not agree with you. What kind of leadership are you showing? Like, where are the values? Where are those principles? Okay. Where are those ethics that govern leadership?
You supported the coalition with
Of course! Okay. I said any initiative that is geared at us obtaining ceasefire, obtaining amnesty for prisoners, and leading us to a sustainable, long-lasting solution is plausible, is welcome.
Anyway, let's take the first reaction of Azong Ouara, the pioneer GCA board chair. Tell us what he thinks about the platform that is bringing together movements that are prudent for federalism in Cameroon.
With that group.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you are saying that.
I was saying that I share lots of things, thoughts and things with that group in common.
Okay.
Yeah, so while I'm a special status follower, I have been a federalist all along. So my thoughts coincide with theirs.
When you say you share, your thoughts actually coincide with theirs, what do you mean?
I mean that if Cameroon were actually going towards a federalist state,
yes,
I would go along with that. Even though I know that they have a difficult path, but I think it's a good path. Unfortunately, our Francophone brothers in Cameroon do not understand what federalism is all about. So it's a one-way push for the Anglophone.
Yeah, what is unique with what the people want? How is that going to solve our problems as a people, especially talking about our living together?
Now, about living together, I think if we want to have federalism, we must work in such a way that the Anglophones remain one. You know, the problem with federalism that I see is that it grows, and it can grow in a direction in which we may not like. For instance, in Europe, you can have a place like Nsah and Babaju growing into a federal state. What will be the culture of that new state? You can have a Bekoko and Modeka growing into a different state. What will be the cultural background of the such a state? So because federalism grows, I would rather prefer that we have a special status which is purely Anglophones in the likes of Canada or Quebec in Canada.
Now this platform that was created, I'm sure was headed by Dr. Simon Munzu. Have you made efforts to reach out to them to also share what you're saying here?
Dr. Simon Munzu has been a friend of mine for a very, very long time, right from secondary high school. And we have shared a common philosophy on federalism. My problem is that they are becoming a little too stuck to the point. Because we must realize that for federalism to take root in Cameroon, we must go for a constitutional amendment. Because the Constitution of Cameroon does not allow federalism. So we first have to amend the Constitution before we put in federalism. At the moment, I don't see us going in that direction. I see what is going on as preparation for a possible future dialogue, which can include a change of the form of state.
Yeah, but are you, now what you are saying, are you engaging them to see things from your direction?
Of course, I do. I keep in touch with them. But you see, they are so madly against the special status that they do not want to move from their own position as well.
Yeah, but there is also the difficult equation trying to convince those who want separation. How do you now want to get persons who want federation to see anything good in the special status?
Yeah, I think that is a question of time. People have to realize that we got into the federal status because, into the specialist status because it is provided for in the Constitution. They do not need to change the Constitution of Cameroon in order to adopt that special status, because it is enshrined in the Constitution that a special status can be granted to any part of the country as their specificity demands. So it was just a natural follow of the Constitution.
Okay, thank you, Azong Wara, the pioneer GCE board chair out there living in Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. Lucas NG, how timely is the holding of this platform, the creation of this platform?
I think the members of the platform had to introspect, and it gave them reasons to come up with this platform. What is indeed good for the viewers to know is that, yes, the United Nations provides for self-determination. And it's just like you would want to be independent and your parents would tell you that, yes, I'm going to give it to you someday. The question is, when are they willing to give it to you? When would they give it to you? Because there is another school of thought out there that, yes, the UN talks of self-independence and so self-determination. So the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon have rights for this. Now, the question is, what method is it enshrined in the UN for self-determination? Is it said to be through violence? Is it said to be through chaos? Is it said to be through guns? Is it said to be through the bows and the arrows? Is it said to be through the beheading? Is it said to be through killing of children who are going to school and so on? No, that is not what it is. Now, the coalition for federation in Cameroon, which I think they had to come up to, I want to look at these bodies to be the silent voices of those who never had the opportunity to speak, but they had it burning in them, especially from the populists, because we have had prominent persons in the likes of Agbobala. We have had other people like Dr. Munzu. We have had the SDF party, which have been advocating for this for long. But what is very sad is that members of the separatist camp gets to see every other view as a taboo within the setup of this ongoing, what I still call the senseless war. Those who are in the diaspora think that they call the shots for those who are on the ground. But I want to say that if we were to have, be it federation or separation, or those who accept the decentralized unitary state, and we also have the school of thought of those who are coming up in the likes of Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, who talks about confederation, which is slightly different from those who are talking about federation. And it is also different from those who are talking about the unitary state. So the question now is, where would you place these people? There is only one thing which will solve this problem. Now, the pioneer registrar of the GCE board says, the Constitution of Cameroon today provides for special status, and it is obvious that it will be only through the constitutional amendment. But how do we get to find ourselves at this point in time? Because if you say that the Constitution of Cameroon doesn't provide for for federation, now the question is, how do we bring the regime in place to understanding that this issue of federation, as these people are talking about today, is a need, and those who are talking about separation, it's a need. Of course, it is obvious that no constitution in the world will amend itself, or no country will amend its constitution to talk about separation. They may want to have some constitutional reforms that want to put together the people, but in a different form. But if you talk about outright separation, it's going to be difficult. The truth is, if we look at some countries in Europe, if we look at I think the people of Northern Ireland or so, who had always wanted to leave the British, the Union, they are on several accounts. They have struggled to have the referendum, and it did fail. We should also look at those from France. There is a certain people from France, the people of Monaco. They too have been struggling to leave the French Union, and it is only through a referendum. Now, the only way we can solve this issue of this different school of thought on the ground is we should look at it through the ballot boxes. So I would like to call on the Coalition for Federation that it is time for they also to advocate and see whether the constitutional amendment could come in to permit for a referendum which is going to determine whether these people will want this or whether these people will want that. Because right now what we need on the ground is, we do not need to solve this crisis. We don't need people who are not in Cameroon and they want to provide solution to this crisis, because it will only entail that they will speak and they will cause more chaos than solving the problem. Right now, we all should not forget that the regime in place also reserves some rights, because even members of the regime in place, I think they also have rights to decide for. And we are also talking about the Anglophone elites who are part of the regime in place. Now, the question is, do you also consider these people? This should be a question now to the Coalition for Federation. Now, so I think that the Coalition for Federation comes at a time which is really timely, because right now, if you look at what is happening on the ground, Mr. Leo, for the fact that a child was killed in Boya, and the officer who killed that child was lynched, and the population went back into their shell, this would tell you that the people on the ground right now do not hold the view of most of those in the diaspora. Because if they did hold the view of most of those in the diaspora, we will not be talking about Boya being where it is today. A similar situation, yes, without this, a similar situation happened in Bamenda. Despite what happened in Bamenda, where little baby Tato Brandy was killed, despite the killings that ensued after that, the situation on the ground is still not the same. The population of Bamenda is not on the street protesting as it was in 2017. So this will tell you that the people at this point in time are looking for the opportunity. They are equally looking for the avenue to, why not, say their own voice, or maybe bring out their own voices to do contributions. And I want to think that most of those who are for separation, they are rather being more repressive than the regime in place. I know it is difficult for them to accept this. Take, for example, what would be the reason for you to want to behead me because I said, no, we should think of federation? And what makes you different from the regime if I should say, no, we want separation, and they'll have to maybe bring me to book and then carry me to Kondengi if I talk about separation? So you who says you want to separate, and the regime who says you should not separate, for the fact that the regime who wants to bring me to Yaoundé if I talk about separation in Cameroon, and you are out there and some of you are here and you want to behead me or maybe give me what they call short-lived or long-lived of years because I'll talk about federation, I think you are not different from that person. The truth is, if you want to have me on your side, then you should think of how you can maybe cajole me, bring me closer to you, bring out the words and actions that will give me reasons not to leave you, not to leave your side. But if you want to be more repressive than the person I'm running from, then the truth is that I will be kept, I'll be left in a situation of the deep blue sea and the devil. And of course, at that point in time, the individual gets to decide who to go to. So I think the Coalition for Federation at this point in time, they should bear in mind that the people on the ground they should not forget, in 2017, from 2016, when the demands of the teachers and the lawyers kept on increasing, it got to a point where I think if you were to get the opinion polls at that point in time, over 99% of the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions would have voted for federation. And there came a time the people had this illusion of separation because they felt that the hand of the regime was more repressive than the way they expected. But let me tell you, by 2019 and 2020, for the fact that some of these people had gone to places like Douala, the outskirts of the littoral region, and yes, Nsah and the rest, everywhere. And they are now going back to some of their places where they earlier ran from. This would tell you that they have decided to go back and bear the situation on the ground. So if you are to bring anything that will give them reasons to be where they are today, they will prefer that. Not everybody who left the comfort zone in 2018 are still living in some of these areas, which we think a good number of them have gone back to some of their areas. Some of those who left places like Kwakwa, they have decided to live in places like Kumba, Muyuka, and Buya. That would tell you that they understand that no matter the situation on the ground, these places are better. Therefore, once you bring anything close to them that will cause them to even go back to where they left in 2018, they will support it. So I want to call on the coalition for federations to take this task and go on go to the public, go take to the media to sensitize the people why they should accept this idea. And if the separatists think that the separation will be the best thing also for the people, they should equally take it upon themselves to sensitize the people, not to be repressive on the people.
Okay. Good evening to you, Emmanuel Mwamba, and to you, Stefan. Mary Baba, good evening to you, Asubo Nkam. Fondon Richard, good evening to you, always watching. Oben Clinton, Ojong, good evening to you. Brian Cyprian Ninkomf, Metro Ninkomf, good evening to you. Wesley Angoni Tiku, Etoy Gabriel Elon, good evening to you. Paddy AG, Eriko Pekuna, good evening to you. Ma Farash, to you. Foban Mbiacha, Prosperity J, good evening to you. Robbie KB, Paddy AG, good evening to you. And to you, yes, Funeba Lovet, good evening to you. Foban Mbiacha, Prosperity J, and Ndiwum Emmanuel, who is watching us also. Brian Cyprian, good evening to all of you watching us through Facebook. We want to also say that we are happy that you are always watching. And Ndifor Richard, now, who were those represented? Who are those represented in this platform?
Just to say that, let me answer that by beginning to talk about why this time, why we have to come this time. We understand that there are a number of federalist groups. There are some of these groups in the UK. There are some of them in the US. There are some of the groups in Cameroon. And in addition to this group, we also have political parties. We have individuals who are advocating for federalism. And all of these groups are existing in dispersed ranks. And so we thought that it would be a great idea to bring these groups all under the same thinking cap, under a coalition, so that we all have the same agenda. That is not to suggest that these groups are going to dissolve or to say that they are going to stop existing. That is just to say that we are going to come under some kind of a federation of federalists, so to speak, and we share these ideas. So far, we have had a number of individuals who are in. We have the federalist groups in the UK. They have already signed in with us. We have the United Cameroon for English Cameroon for United Cameroon. That is another federalist group which is there with us. We have a number of women groups which are civil society organizations. Some of them headed by minority groups like the Bororo groups. They have all signed in to the coalition so far, and we are still open. You know, Leonard, that we just launched this group on Saturday, but we already have this momentum building up, and we are going to have more and more people signing into the coalition. We have had a number of these advocates, people like Agbobala. He has attended a few meetings, and I'm sure he was there during the press conference. And we also have a number of other people who have seen, who are agreeing with us on this, and they will be coming in. It's a hope that we have all of these federalist groups come into this coalition, so that we now put up a very powerful force, and to take from where the other speakers were talking about. We are talking about a situation, a crisis situation, and we have people who said they have the authority to speak for others. The question we keep asking ourselves is, where did they get that mandate to speak on behalf of Anglophones, or to speak on behalf of Cameroonians? They are just individual initiatives that they started, just like we started. When this whole thing started, this crisis started, the people who started this, the Agbobalas who started this, they were not talking about cessation. They were not talking about fighting any war. Yes, we have gotten to the point where we are now in a war situation. But to suggest that no other voice should come up, and that anybody who ventures to talk is a target to be killed, I don't think that that is the way we should. We are not looking at, it is true that we have to pressure the regime to do this, but if pressuring the regime has to come by killing other Anglophones, has to come by kidnapping other Anglophones, by destroying the economy of the English-speaking region of Cameroon, by depriving our children of education, then that is not the kind of thing we are looking at. We think, and that is why we emphasize the idea of the force of argument and not the argument of force.
Okay,
Ndifor,
hello.
Most of our
Hello, Ndifor.
Yes.
I will be coming back to you. Let's take this short break. We come back and I will stay with you.
Nothing more magical than spending good times with the family during the holidays. So, join Canal Plus and let's spend the holidays together. To welcome you, the decoder is 5,000 francs and installation offered with many channels.
Ça sera la musique ou rien.
C'est tout.
What to love.
Nous avons un duel Afrique de l'Ouest, Afrique centrale.
Dance and ignite your evenings. Share strong moments full of twists and turns. And even make the younger ones dream.
Passage en vitesse, Mac Noël. Tout est prêt pour qu'on profite de
Apostle and Reverend Mrs. Ngwa invite you to a 5-day program, Feast of the Tabernacle, from the 24th to the 28th of November 2021, under the theme, Provoking the Sworn Blessings. Guest ministers, Minister Gashi Mia, Minister Eta, Reverend Paul Tom, Dr. Rogers Fogwe, and host Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa, Reverend Ann Ngwa. Venue, Church Auditorium, Antia Road, Bonaberry, located at the Afrigas filling station, 200 meters from the road. Be there and provoke the blessings of God upon your life.
Welcome back. You're watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We'll stay with you, Ndifor Richard. You were talking about the fact that persons are targeted. Are you not afraid of being targeted? Because I know severally you have been targeted, and accused of having received money from the government. Maybe you're talking out of that influence, how much money has been paid to you guys to do what you're doing. But you also talked about destroying Anglophone Cameroon. How much destruction has been done so far? By what is happening when we understand that war also goes with destruction?
Yes, Leonard, it is true that war goes with destruction. But what kind of war? Senseless war, like somebody said. What is the pathway to independence? That's the question I keep asking. When you tell people, because this whole thing has to do with a lot of manipulation, misinformation, lies telling, illusion that they're creating in the minds of people. There are people, ordinary people, who still believe very strongly in all this manipulation and all these lies that they are going to achieve independence. In 2016, there were people who thought that independence was going to come in the next few weeks or months. Here are we, 5 years after, and they are still telling them the same story. They started by lying that the UNESCO is going to cancel the school year. That was a big lie. It didn't happen. Then they are still, we cannot succeed on falsehood. We cannot succeed on falsehood, and that is what they are building on. But the worst part of it, Jonah, is not only the lies that they are telling and deceiving people. There are people who actually believe and they feel that they can continue to suffer and feel the pain and really still think that independence is coming. But the truth is that if you look at the way the international community operates, the way the international law, the international body, they operate, independence cannot be granted by just handing it over like a piece of cake to Southern Cameroonians. Independence can only come if the people of the regime in place accept to conduct a plebiscite or a referendum to ask the Cameroonians if they choose to want to be independent. And we already know the results of that, and the government already know that if they give that opportunity for people to vote in an independence, even me who I'm talking here, I will vote for independence if that opportunity is going to come. But that there is no possibility of such an opportunity ever coming up. And so all what they're saying is just an illusion. It's just lies telling. It's just feeding people with lies of things that will never happen. And unfortunately, a lot of people keep believing in this. And some even well-educated people in our society keep believing in this kind of falsehood. And to add to that, Leonard, is the fact that you say you are fighting for independence for a group of people, and then you go after those same people. You go attacking those same people. A majority of Southern Cameroonians or West Cameroonians are suffering today more than any other group of people. The number of Southern Cameroonians who have been killed far outnumber the number of soldiers that have been killed by by separatists. The target, in the most part, have been the ordinary people. They are the ones who have been the target of the separatists. They are the ones who have been kidnapped. They are the ones who have been killed the most. They are the ones whose businesses have been attacked and destroyed, whose property have been destroyed. They are the ones who suffer the pains and burden of ghost town operation and all lockdown and whatsoever. They are the ones whose children have not gone to school since 2016. All of this with the false hope, false impression. Some of them do this very happily. They do it very happily under the false pretense, false hope that they are going to achieve independence someday. Listen, Leonard, let me be very clear. I am not by any means saying that what this regime is doing is all right. We all know that what the regime is doing is horrible. We all know that the regime has not been fair to the people of West Cameroon all along. We know that this regime has been a regime that has not been a people-oriented regime. It has been a regime that has been there to suppress and intimidate and all of that on the people. But what the separatists are offering are not any better from what the regime is doing. And so therefore, we are saying that we cannot continue to remain intimidated. We need to educate the people to know that they have to bury fear and embrace the force of argument and not the argument of force. We should be able to force this regime using other means other than using war. And war, if this war was to be affecting only the regime in place, I would not have any problem with that. If it was only to affect them. But the fact is that the truth is that the effect of the war on the regime is very minimal compared to what the ordinary people on the ground are facing. The burden of this war is on the ordinary people. The fact that they go in for a so-called poll or survey, which basically, to be very honest with you, I don't know how these polls were conducted. I don't know how these surveys were conducted because I talk with people every day on the ground. And what I hear every time is that if this is what is going to lead us to the so-called independence, it is preferable we stay where we are. Because the pains, the suffering, enormous. It is enormous. And so we think that it is time we start educating Cameroonians. We start getting Cameroonians to understand that yes, there is cross. We achieve without necessarily allowing children to die, without necessarily allowing our plants to get destroyed, and without necessarily allowing our children to die. What they need, they think that is education. So we are saying that federalists need to come together. All federalists, wherever you are, and if you truly say that you are a true federalist and you really believe in federalism, then this is the moment for all of us to come together and speak with one single voice. We, like I said earlier, we are not dissolving any group. We are not saying that any federalist group that is existing should dissolve. Those groups will stay the way they are with their present structure and with their leaders. But we will come together as a coalition, as a body, to be able to share our ideas and be able to see how we can move forward to be a counter to the extreme positions of both the separatists and the people, the unitary government or the regime in place.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the great minds. If it is a great initiative for them to come together and seek a common front, but there is a problem because I don't know if all the warlords are in that coalition. If all they're good, but if not, they should try to get them in. Molombe Hans, writing from Boya. Sumbele Kelvin from Kongsamba says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and your panelists. A nice program as usual. No coalition will yield fruit for now until the head of state decides to solve the problem himself. The government is satisfied with the special status given. Sumbele Kelvin, okay. Daisy writing from Kumba says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists. Even though coalition may bring federalists together, but I wonder if it can solve the problem. Good evening to you. Prudence Ndurong watching from Limbe, and to you, Mr. Julius Kum, who is a title holder in Isu village, watching from Douala here. Ngong Walter Koi, good evening to you, watching from Boya, and to you, Barrister Ntoko, watching from Limbe. We also wish you the best as you want to conquer the Cameroon Bar Association. We wish you the best. We hope that you become the next bar president. Now, we are talking about you listening to what we're talking about. Now, did some movements resist this call for a coalition? I'm talking about some movements involved with the move for federation.
No, not at all. I think the rallying call for re-establishment of federalism in Cameroon is still an infant organization coming up. And I think most of the people consulted are so far very enthusiastic about it. And recently we've gotten a lot of calls from people on ground and people around the country that it is a good initiative and they would like to join, stakeholders representing organizations. Yeah. Mr. Liu, you need to hear testimony from people, you know, people in prison, people in refugee camps and IDPs. There was a time that there is an organization called Humanitarian and Social Services that is supposed to be rendered to victims of war. Mr. Liu, the burden of these people's problems still lie in the head and hands of the Federalists who are in Yaoundé, Douala, Bamenda, Boya, and even those people who are working with Yaoundé regime. I am telling you. But the organization of the liberation struggle itself, it's a problem. I've observed this for a while. It is a problem. We are criticizing not to say that people should not hold their opinion. This is a space created for tolerance, for inter-exchange, to bring what you think, I bring what I think, so that together we can see what to subtract from your ideas, what to subtract from our ideas, for us to build a tolerant society. But if the society is going to be such that some other people's ideas are invalid and it should not exist, then it is not good. Because you are backed by weapons and the other people are backed by the pen. You know, if you look at Africa critically, we have several agitations for independence in the African continent, ranging from the Ambazonia to the people of Tigray region, to the people, some groups in DRC, some in Angola, some in Togo, right up to Libya and so on, Mr. Liu. Not to forget our neighbor, the Biafrans. What is common in all these attempts to separate is that there is no interest at the level of the organizations that is governing the world, UN, to grant independence to any of these people. Some of these people started long ago before us, and they are still agitating till date, and their country is in shackles. Because many people are arguing out of emotions. It is not emotions here. We are talking of scientific research and study on conflict. Since the death of Patrice Lumumba, Moïse Tshombe, and Joseph Kasavubu, these three people in Congo, Congo had never been itself through the reign of Mobutu, right to Desiré Kabila, to Joseph Kabila, right to this present man that is there. They have never had the opportunity to consolidate the power of this country up to date. There are some areas there that are ungovernable. And if you want to talk of the worst rape cases, human rights violations, humanitarian crisis, it is DRC, but with the richest resources there. What is the essence of a country passing through decades of internal squabbles, rather than the people sitting on the round table to say that, but why are we killing ourselves? Why should we not come and discuss? I got raged, Mr. Liu, when the initiative of CDN came up and then people started criticizing. I said, but what then do we want? Because I know CDN is separation inclined. CDN is struggling to bring separatist factions together so that they can harmonize their views. What do they want? When some women elites, Norway Southwest Women Task Force plus some other civil society came up with a convention for women peace, inviting 1,500 women to see how they could give testimonies of their problem, advocate for a leeway. Sabotage. It is Yaoundé issue. And some of these things, people say it without even participating and without having full knowledge of what is happening. I remember I was in Yaoundé in the conference center. I said, oh my God, look at 1,500 women coming to Yaoundé and the head of state's wife is not there to receive them. That's one of the questions I asked in that place. The participants of that place will tell you. And they say, let me not bring my radical ideas. I said, but this is what it takes to construct a society. You must have adverse views and we must be tolerant to these adverse views. They are doing their own thing they are doing. We should appreciate them in their corner. If you don't want to, if you feel that somebody's ideas is not good, do not always be at that juncture of like putting the person's life at bait. Why should you bet at the people's life?
Yes, but before I get to you, Nji Lucas, please, if you are there Ndifor Richard, I want many persons are writing to me that separatists gave the Federalists the voice, that you are using the voice given to you by separatists. How true is this? Is it the separatists who gave a voice to the Federalists?
It's the contrary.
Okay, you think it's the contrary?
I think maybe, let me just make a statement on that. You said some people say it is the separatists who gave voice to Federalists.
They think that you are talking to
I think that people have to put things straight. In 2016 and 17, the consortium was a civil society organization of Federalists. The meeting in Bamenda with Cameroonian ministers from Yaoundé, was to talk about form of states. So the syndicates were Federalists. Agbobala till date, Tassam and the others, they were all Federalists. Rather, the separatists came and hijacked it from the Federalists between 2018 and 19. And I said it here and I'm reiterating again. It went out of hand when Sisiku Ayutabe was extradited. And I expected the people to pay their harmonious loyalty to Sisiku Ayutabe, who was taken to prison, so that they could coordinate their actions towards a unique leader who was so charismatic. But the people vomited him and then started creating different factions and creating some kind of... And the funny thing is, this thing is not ending at the level of disagreement. No? It's having impact on ground with young people dying as a consequence of disagreement between two factions. Does that make sense? Seriously, it doesn't make sense. So, somebody should not come and tell me that it is Federalists. If separatists are giving voice to federalists, maybe they should say because of the gun. One thing people should know is that everyone can shoot gun. Everyone can take the gun. Okay, if we are choosing to use pen, Mr. Leo, it's because we understand that to give gun to somebody is easy, but to take it back is difficult. Okay. And gun do not have its place in 21st century because it's more self-destructive than constructive.
Is for there?
I'm here.
Yes, many persons are writing, especially indexing you, to say that you are talking today because persons have taken up gun. Who gave a voice to who?
That is interesting, Leonard. That is the interesting fact about the part that you're talking about. The issue of a voice, being given voice to somebody, the issue of federalism started as long as, or the issue of secession started as long as in the 80s. We know that since the 80s, even before Foncha died, he has been talking about the issue of federalism and secession and all of that. Even before the 2016 crisis, before it started, the SDF has been talking about federalism. Many people like Agbobala have been talking about federalism. And then in 2016, the issue that gave voice even to the separatists was federal. They were federalists. The people who gave them voice was federalists. It is Agbobala and the rest. If Agbobala they were not arrested and locked up, these people who call themselves federalists, separatists today, they would not have come up. And it is not about the gun. It is not because they started shooting and they started killing people or because they started kidnapping and all of that. That is not the reason why we are talking about this today. This whole discussion and conversation had started a long time ago. We were already engaged in this conversation. The government itself was already concerned about this. And that is why in 1996, we had the Constitution of Cameroon reviewed in 1996. That was due to the pressure that was put on the government by federalists, especially political parties like the SDF. That is when they started talking about decentralization. And that happened in 1996. So we cannot be talking about secessionists giving voice to federalists today. It is absurd. It is preposterous to say that the separatists are the ones who have given voice to federalists. The federalist agenda had been on the table for a very long time. It is true that the crisis that we have today in Cameroon has created a problem that has attracted a lot of international attention to Cameroon. But again, what value has it added? What difference has it made from when it started, even before the war came up? The only value that it has added, the only thing that it has added to it is that a lot of Southern Cameroonians, English-speaking Cameroonians, have died. Okay. A lot of
very briefly, I'm asking you a question. I really want us to be explicit about what we say. You say this was started by the Balas and co. So persons are asking, Mr. Leonard, who voted for Bala? Who gave him the mandate to speak on behalf of Southern Cameroonians? Is it also bringing the question of legitimacy as to who has to talk for the people of the Southwest and Northwest regions?
Beautiful question, and let me answer that question very simply. Bala and the rest of them did not say they were representing Southern Cameroonians per se. Bala was representing an institution. He was the president of the Lawyers Association, and he was representing the lawyers. The other guy for the Teachers Association was representing the Teachers Association. They were representing institutions, and they had particular issues that they were presenting to the table. When this issue had to be was founded on the basis of the grievances of Southern Cameroonians, and these grievances was on the basis of federalism, on the fact that if there was a federal system of government, and we have our own states, the Southern Cameroons or the West Cameroons had its states as it existed before, then we will have the legal system that existed before the unitary system came into place. We will have the educational system, our own specific educational system, the way we had it, based on the federal structure. And that is why they were pushing this idea of federalism, because they felt that it was only within a federal structure that the English legal system and English educational system would be purely respected. They felt that within the context of the unitary system, the English legal system would not be respected. These were the people who were projecting, and they won the support. They won the support of a majority of English-speaking Cameroonians, a majority of West Cameroonians backed their idea, backed the whatever they were supporting. Before this group of people came from nowhere and hijacked the whole thing, bring in their own agenda into the and turn around and start intimidating the very people who started the thing. They started not only intimidating, they intimidated everybody. And we are now seeing what is operating. We are seeing what is happening even within the ranks of the separatists. That the goal of all of this is not the interest of the people of West Cameroon, as we are talking about. The interest of all of this thing is personal interest. Otherwise, why should every one of them who say they are fighting for separation, why should they go after each other? They go killing other fighters. The ADF is killing fighters for the SACO group. The SACO group, they're killing fighters of the ADF. All of this, if you say you are truly fighting for it, why should you go after each other? Why should you go fighting each other? And just to end, Leonard, just to end without taking so much time here, to say that the agenda that when you see how Bala and Tassan, how they carried out this movement initially, they did not intimidate anybody. They did not threaten any English-speaking Cameroonians to say that if you do not subscribe to what we are talking about, then you will be killed. They did not do that. This simply was putting forth what we call the force of argument. They were simply using force of argument.
Yeah, but there is an issue of legitimacy as to who has to talk for who. Is that a fundamental problem here?
Well, I think
because the Federalists are grouping themselves to say this is our position. Yes. Don't they have a right to also say what they think?
Yes, the Federalists have the right. When we talk about who gives who the mandate, I think the people on the ground, by their actions, you can clearly deduce. There are times when you have to get your sense of, you have to deduce. Deductively, we would say that at this point in time, if we were to go back to 2017, to be precise, you would realize, let me leap into 2016, please. Now, by 2016, we realized that during the last meeting I held in Bamenda, where the Minister of Higher Education, the Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education, Professor Jacques Famendogo, was in Bamenda, we realized that when Tassan came out, Wilfred Tassan, when he came out and was speaking to the people, telling them, giving them updates on the situation on the ground, you can, from there, deductively, we would say that the people were in support of what they were saying. And if you can recall what Tassan said, Tassan talked about the things they have put on the table and the belief that it had a lot to do with managing the situation, provided the federation idea or the federation core is needed to. And so from there, you will realize that the people by 2016 had already surrendered to the Bala and Tassa team, I think, which, of course, we should not forget, that was the consortium. Now, when Barrister Agbobala and Wilfred Tassa were arrested, now in 2017, the people now were a little confused, but because of the Julius Sistabe's own view with regards to the war, where he at the time had nothing to do with arms on the ground, he was still at the diplomatic level of it because he made so much of diplomatic moves than that of the arms. So the people drifted a little towards him when he was preaching the aspect of peace and how we have to resist and how we have to keep on resisting. But why did these people leave and move up to Julius Tabe? It was because he, at that particular point in time, was not in support of arms yet. And so by September 2017, September 22, when the president of Cameroon was about to speak in the UN, there was that general call that the people should come. And when they come to the street, the United Nations is going to see them and they will know that something is happening. But where did these people come from? They were coming from the Bala and Tassa's camp, which was all about the Federalist movement. So I want to believe that the people generally have not said, yes, this is the person we prefer. But right now, if you look at the situation on the ground, those who have the arm on the ground seemingly are in control in areas where the people's voice with regards to their choices cannot be gotten. Therefore, those who are in places where the boys are dominating, they cannot say their real voices. But if you were to have their voices from their actions, let me take the case of Ekuna. In Ekuna, when the Cameroon military commander was sent to Ekuna, he had to put together the people and told them that, okay, I have come and I'm not here to ensure that any of you get into trouble. But the day I'm going to see any of my element falls down or resulting from your brothers, then know that we all will fight and bring them to order. You observe that the people at that point in time, they were not the way they used to be in 2018 and 2019. That would tell you that they too have drifted from that total separation to a point where they know whatsoever gets to bring their children to school, gives them food, allow their economy to take on as it was in the case in 2016, they will follow it. So I want to think that
what's the situation in My 16?
Right now in My 16, we have a good number of the internally displaced people, and all the schools in My 16 are functioning. However, the separatists are still present because they are still living in the bushes. Some people, those who go to the bushes, they will tell you that we have been told not to come on this day, and some of our farms are in control by these people and things like that. But with regards to the situation on the ground, I want to think that even some of the separatists, they are somehow tired. If you follow their actions on the ground, they are tired. What they want right now is whatsoever is going to give them some kind of autonomy. And I think that the federation ideology would go a long way to handle that. Now, this is another problem which so many people seem not to have it right here. Please, the coalition for federation at this point in time, this coalition is coming as the third option which the Southern Cameroonians had during the plebiscite Of course, we should not forget, because during the plebiscite, during the time of the plebiscite, we had whether you separate by joining Nigeria or you separate, you get your independence by, rather, whether you get your independence by you unifying with La Republic of Cameroon, or you get your independence by unifying with Nigeria. And the third option, which they never had, I think the coalition is now that third option, because if that third option had been given a listening ear, probably we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think that it is time for the people, especially those who have the guns, they should bear in mind that refusals or denying the option of the other person will not solve the problem. But Mr. Leo, I have a little worry here too. Now, when we see people who are out there, those who are out there like Fabrice Lena and Ndifor Richard, who are championing this cause to bring together the different factions and the different voices which speaks of federations, to see whether which kind of federation should be in place, because I think they are not only calling that they want to call the people to form a team, but it is also to get their minds on what kind of federation we should be vying in for. How do we coin the aspect of the federation? I want to call on the regime in place, Mr. Liu, to bear in mind that all these measures to consolidate unity and peace in Cameroon does not mean that a repressive regime is a solution to the ongoing crisis. I want to think that a good number of people out there, like Fabrice is already being castigated, that some of them have received something, maybe that Yaoundé has given them something, whereas they have not received anything. Okay. It's because they are struggling to see how they can bring back the peace that we used to have to get the people's voices.
Let's get back to Boya to get the second intervention of Azon Wara, pioneer chair of the Cameroon GC board.
Now, Doctor, why do you think it's going to be very difficult to change the constitution, to touch it, to accommodate federation?
No, it's not that it's impossible or very difficult. But I'm saying that we are not at that stage now. We are at the stage of containing the separatist movement that has come up in our country. We're in the state of trying to handle it. And we of the Federalists, we are thinking that federalism will be a solution. But you also have to bear in mind that that may not be what the separatists are thinking about. So the difficulty will be in convincing both the separatists and the government of Cameroon to weigh out a true federalism. The government of Cameroon will stubbornly speak to the fact that it is not a constitutional thing. And they also, the francophones themselves are not used to it, or very, very reluctant to it. Perhaps at some stage they may just turn around and say, okay, let us keep it for the purpose of keeping the country one. But deep down them, they don't understand what federalism is all about.
Have you had time to go through what Cabral Libby is proposing, called communal federalism?
Unfortunately, I have not read Cabral Libby, unfortunately, but I'll need to look at it.
Because it goes somewhat in line with what you raised about the possibility for Santa and Babaju to wanting to get into a federation, and then you raise the issue of, I'm sure, Bikoko and Modeka. Yes.
And so many others, Kumbo and Kumban can grow into a federal state someday.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have similar traditional culture.
Yeah, but what is wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that at all. But you see, when that happens, my problem is that when that happens, Anglophone solidarity would have been destroyed completely. So there will be nothing again like Anglophone, Francophone, because you would then have multiplicity of federal states which are English speaking and French speaking, and gradually the Anglophone culture will die out.
So what you are saying is that you are wanting the reestablishment of the two-state federation. Is that possible in our current context?
Not at all. I don't think that. I'll be foolish to be assuming that we can go to a two-state federal state. It's not possible at all. It's not possible. But the fact that the Northwest and Southwest can stick together and work together in Cameroon, we can at least achieve many more things than breaking up into 10 and than struggling to go back to 1961. We can't get there, and it's no use. There's no point trying to get back there.
Why is it difficult? Why is it impossible? Why is it useless to wanting to go back there?
No, I think we have grown. We have all grown. I don't think I want to go back to the state where you have a Mampe one way go up, Bamenda one way down. That's what 1961 is all about. But we have gone past that stage. We have grown. United States started with 13 states, you know. They are not 13 now. Nigeria started with 3 or 4. They are not 3 or 4 now. So federalism grows. That's what I mean.
Okay, thank you, Azonwara. We're going to be coming back to you before the end of this edition of the program. Now, the platform actually seeks to work for the return of peace and normalcy to the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, to push for the re-establishment of federalism as the system of government in Cameroon. How do you intend to do that?
Yeah, just take a little opinion poll, Mr. Liu, that you want to ask the people. All right. Now, seemingly, everyone is tired of the war and we want it to end. Ask these questions to the people. Let victims, yeah, not those who are making from the conflict and don't want it to end. Victims, I'm talking about refugees, I'm talking about IDPs, I'm talking about prisoners, I'm talking about people whose family have been shot in one way or the other. Ask them that, how do you want this war to end, or how do you want us, people of West Cameroon, Southern Cameroon, or Ambazonia, as we prefer to call it, to have the necessary change we want? Is it by war? Is it by federation? Or is it by special status? Because these are the practical questions. Now, how possible is it for us to obtain our change by war? Because by war means separation. How possible and for how long? Let people analyze it and tell us. If the people are ready, I mean the population themselves, including the refugees, the IDPs and the victims, if the population vote massively that we are ready to stay for as long as we are not independent, we will not sit. I mean the victims, not those who are leading in abroad. Because somebody cannot be in Europe or in America and living in an advanced democratic society and be making controls on ground. I still don't agree with that. Jonas Savimbi died fighting 70 years old. He fought for the independence of Angola, and after the independence, he did not agree with the leadership of the first president, Agostinho Neto. He fought and still fought for against the leadership of Eduardo dos Santos. And 2002, February 2002, he was killed in the battlefield. Those are real rebel leaders, not people who use social media, Facebook, to command people on ground. You get what I'm trying to say? If they are ready for this 50 to or the number of years of war that it would take, and the people vote for it, good and fine. We all go to that. When majority vote, it does not mean that some other people do not hold different opinion. They hold different opinion, but you must succumb to the majority. But now, if the people say that the war can end through federation, and there is possibility of the present system granting us that discussion of having federation, and there is a possibility of us pressurizing the present system to accept this. There is possibility of the international partners of Cameroon and diplomatic corps and personalities to rally that no, there's possibility for us to go to federation. Then the people accept that. Let's go for it. Because special status is existing now and we see that it does not have any relevance. You get what I'm trying to say? So I'm trying to say that in every struggle, there is always plan A, separation, if it does not work. Plan B, federation, if it does not work. Plan C, special status, if it does not work. What do we do? I was expecting at this particular time that no, we should Coalition for dialogue and negotiation, other initiatives of peace should come and say that at this point, since the war is costing us a lot and we are losing a lot of civilians, let's give the chance for let's create the political platform and fight these people with it. Let's go and behave like Wiba. If we had 10, 15 Wiba in this parliament, it will be stronger than the Julius Malema group in South Africa that is putting the leaders upright, holding them accountable. But he was alone. He was alone. So what we are trying to say is that in every struggle, you do not put your egg in one basket. You do not put your egg in one basket because you have given some people gun and then there's no possibility of them now leaving the gun. Now, what is the alternative? How do we want the war to end? Do we want the war to end by continuous war? By federation that is possible? Or by special status that is not working? So let us decide ourselves. So we are giving an alternative because we federally see that there is possibility for the war to end with a new federal republic. And with the federal republic, it depends on consultations in collaboration with the people and the two parties for us to sit down, look at the cultural aspects, contemporary challenges, historical aspects, the constitution, and rewrite a new constitution on the reality of this country to establish a new federal republic.
Okay.
Countries like Switzerland, Canada, Nigeria, they are living together not because they love themselves, but because international community is no more interested in fragmenting people, but rather struggling to put people together. Okay.
Ndifor Richard, I will continue by reading what you came out with after your first meeting. You say that you are convinced that neither a centralized government nor a decentralized unitary government nor the special status of any regions nor separation can adequately address the historical, constitutional, and contemporary governance challenges confronting our nation or our country. How do you mean?
Yeah, what we mean is what I have been saying earlier, that we have to go by the legal, constitutional framework that brought West Cameroon together with East Cameroon. The constitutional framework was built on the fact that the two territories will come together on the basis of a federation. And we are saying that the federation, as it stands, is the constitutional basis, because if you want to say separation, the people of East Cameroon or the regime is going to hold you again on the constitutional framework that brought us together. And we are using the same constitutional framework to hold the regime in place to say that you are violating this part of the agreement, this contract that brought us together. And so therefore the two sides, there was nothing in that constitutional arrangement that talked about anything like a special status. There was nothing in it that said, in fact, what was there was that any proposal for amendment that will impair the federal structure of the union shall be inadmissible. And so we are saying that let us go back to that drawing board. Let us go back to what brought us together in the first place. Like we have all these organizations, all these international bodies coming in and saying the same thing. Go back to the root causes of the problem. What is the root causes of the problem? What is the root cause? And the root cause is, what was the constitutional arrangement that you guys made when you came together? And the constitutional arrangement was on the basis of a federation. And therefore, until we go back to that base of federation, we could now be negotiating. We could now be talking about, oh, what kind of federation are we talking about? Maybe after so many years, we are saying that the federation of two states may not still be very valid. Maybe we are saying that the federation of 10 states could be something tenable, or maybe 8 states could be what we should be talking about. That will now be an arrangement that we'll be talking about after we have gone back to where we began. So we are saying that we should respect the legality of what brought the two groups together. So if the separatists are talking about, they want to use the legal framework to use it for the argument, we should be clear about that and use what actually is the framework for that argument, which is the Constitution. the Constitution of 1961. I know there are a lot of arguments surrounding this. There are a lot of arguments, people talking about the fact that, there was no such constitution because Foncha did not have a right to do all of that. But we are talking about the legal framework as was endorsed by the United Nations Organization. We have had opportunity to talk about this in this program earlier, where I was here with Barrister Ashu, and we brought in the document that brought these two territories together. And there was nothing in that document that insinuates what the separatists are talking about. And that is why it is making it even more difficult for us to say that the United Nations is going to go back to its decision and maybe organize some kind of referendum. It is true. We could always reorganize a referendum to decide, but that would be based on the goodwill of the regime. And you and me know that this regime as it stands will never give in to that kind of a referendum to come up. And like I said earlier, I will be ready if they give such a referendum and say that people should vote either they want independence or what. I will vote for independence. I will want that. I will want to have our own state. But there is no possibility of that. And that is the kind of information we are trying to push across, to tell our people that they should stop dying for a cause that is illusionary. They should stop dying for a cause that is not realistic, that will not come to fruition. These are all make-believe. These are just things that people have been manipulated, and they tend to believe in it and feel that it could actually work. So this is the kind of education that I think we should be giving to people.
Yeah, but Ndifor Richard, some persons think that you talk the way you talk because you've received money from the government.
I do not receive, I don't know what they mean by government. The government is not called DR, the government is not the CPDF. The government is the government to which I pay taxes to, and to which every other person pays taxes. And so the same government that pays me is the same government that pays all DR who is there.
No, not from that perspective. Not from that perspective. Not from that perspective. Not you alone. That you, Fabrice Lena, and everybody. Yeah. Mm.
Oh yeah, I get the point. That we are being bribed. That is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would like for them to bring. You see, this is the phenomenon that we have all the time. That when you do not agree with people, they say you have been bribed. You have been paid to say what you say. As a matter of fact, I think the government do not even like what I say, to be paying me to even say what I'm saying. The government does not like what I'm saying. The government is not happy with what I'm saying. And then it's not happy with what this coalition, they say, is putting forward. They are not happy with it. This is something that we are pushing, and that is why we needed this coalition. We needed a body to come together so that we can continue the pressure on the regime, because we need a united force to put the pressure on the regime. And I don't think the regime is going to bribe a group of people to come putting pressure on them, something that they are not willing to do.
G. Lucas, now, actually, we are talking about going back to the 1972 arrangements or 1961 arrangements. Is it actually very practical today? Have things not really evolved?
Well, I think, you see, what Ndifor Richard ended with, I think he made mention of the coalition to come together and to see whether the 1961 situation was there, or between 1961 and 1971, whether that
72.
is no, well, 72, which we had the referendum. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I think what he insinuated there is okay, at this point in time, if we are going back to federation, is it going to be 10 states? Is it going to be 2 states? Is it going to be 12 states or so? But I think it will not be easy for us to go back to 1960. Let me just take it 1971. Let me just pick that point. I think it will be very difficult for us to go back to 1971 federation, because it is obvious that by the time the northern parts were one, and after then the northern parts were divided into 3. And it is obvious that the man from Garwa, Marwa, and Gaundere would not want that same situation which they had before. Likewise, we had the center south. And so I think the people of the center south will not want to go back to live as they used to be. It would therefore mean that at this point in time, we will be looking at a multiple federated state other than the normal 2 federated states which we had before. Now, what I want some of the persons on the ground advocating for separation to understand is there are certain things you need to have in place before you talk about separation. Please, I want that they should go back and look at the situation which is happening in Myanmar. They should look at the situation which is happening in Tibet. They should look at the situation which is happening in Taiwan. They should look at the situation which is happening in many other countries. I am aware that some of them will tell us that, yes, what about Yugoslavia, which have been divided? What about Serbia, which used to be in Montenegro, and today we have Serbia, and today we have Montenegro, and the rest. But I think we have a very recent case here, which should be that of the Catalans. We should not forget that most of the friends and partners to the government of Cameroon and the regime in place are persons who will not actually support this idea. So, in as much as it is left in their hands, I am of the civil society where I want to get the opinion of this person, what you have got to say, what you are saying, and to see where we can arrive at a solution. Of course, at this point in time, if the ballot boxes were to be set before me to decide on the form of the state, I think it is going to be a secret ballot. Then you will get to know my voice. Of course, my own voice too counts a lot. But what I'm saying here is, if we are talking about this coalition for federation, in my opinion, I think they too should be given the opportunity to get the people on the ground and to have the people sensitized. I know that the sensitization which is ongoing right now on the camp of the government, let me put it straight, the camp of the regime in place, which is managing the affairs of the country, which is the special status, they are using other means to educate and to bring it closer to the people. On the side of the separatists, they too are using other means, and which is the gun. The government, on the other hand, is using both the gun to put order where they know order should be, and they are using the elite and some people in place to talk about the special status. So I think the coalition for federation should also bear in mind that the federation which used to be there, the federated states of the West and East Cameroon, will not really be the case as it was, because the people of the Southwest have tested something different. The people of the Northwest have tested something different. The people of the East region have tested something different other than when they were center south. So I think that at this point in time, those who are advocating for the federated state of Cameroon, they should also bear in mind that the people's mind would not be as it was before 1972. And those who are advocating for separation, they should also not forget that the people's opinion counts a lot. If you want to separate a country, please bear in mind that there are certain people you need to have on your side. Now, let me tell you, there are certain countries. If these countries are not on your side, if you are not recognized internationally, as it stands, no country recognizes the Ambazonia Republic. That is what we need to know. Let me tell some of these viewers, please. Carl Puigdemont. Yes. It has been individual recognition, it has been council recognition, it has been some kind of, you go to a country, let me take the case of Brazil, where a particular municipal head within Brazil recognized them. It is the same thing we have seen in some places where some congressmen of the US, they will make certain statements. It is different from the recognition we are expecting from the White House, the Pentagon, the State Department, the Congress itself in its entirety, the Senate. All these things, they are different. Now, let us look at the case of Carl Puigdemont. Recently, the people of Spain decided to pardon Carl Puigdemont. We should not forget, he was indicted. I think he was actually he was said to be arrested in Germany, and the people of the Spanish people wanted him to be extradited to Spain so he could be charged. But because of the fact that a couple of persons are on his side, it was not possible to extradite Carl Puigdemont. So it is the same case for the fact that Julius Tabe Ayok was sent to Cameroon. Though we do not have any extradition treaty with Nigeria, but he was given to Cameroon government because of what Cameroon government presented to the Nigerian government. The same thing happened with the hip-hop leader in Nigeria who was taken from Kenya to Nigeria. I want the viewers to know that at this point in time, most of the African government, if not all, for the fact that in their little corners. They haven't said anything concerning this crisis. ECAS has not said anything. We have that which is just the which Cameroon is a member. We are talking about the CEMAC. They have not said anything. ECOWAS has not said anything. The African Union itself, the security body of the African Union itself has not said anything. That which deals with the economy has not said anything. Then let me ask you now, who do you think is actually listening to this? There are certain people who will tell you that they are listening to it. I want to believe that these are persons who have interest. Most of the separatists at this point in time, Mr. Leo, which of course we should not forget, I know that people in the likes of Thibon Dash has actually stirred up a lot of sentiment in the people to the extent where some people have issues with what he is saying. But let me tell you, if this man truly loves these people and he wants the Southern Cameroonians to have what he talks about on Twitter, then at the time he was active as the Undersecretary of African Affairs, he would have done a lot, because by that time we have had the NCNC. The NCNC was there. At the same time, the consortium was still existing before he went on retirement. And we should not forget, for the fact that there was this famous journalist who was always present at the UN to talk about the Ambazonian issues which were happening on the ground. But I think he was suspended and even banned from entering. That would tell you that they themselves, the people we are hoping to have their support, they are doing all within their power to prevent, ban certain things, not to, that the people, those whom you think should get the information, they will not have it.
Yeah, let's take the last intervention of Azongwara from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital.
That two-state federation is not what is apt best for Cameroon now. What form of federation are you proposing?
I've already pointed out that federation is not one of those things that will bring immediate relief to the problems that we have now.
You maintain that the special status can?
I think the special status is the best thing. But if we want to go back to federalism, then we should look at the possibility of a 10-state federation, which the Northwest and the Southwest would want, and go back to that. But we also have to tie in. I remember that in 1993, when we were going for the constitutional conference, the SPNC met, and we're trying to have a federation within the federation. That they wanted to federate the Northwest and the Southwest first, before federating the Anglophone with the Francophone.
They're talking about a confederation, yeah.
Yeah, that was the kind of thing. Confederation now, since that would have led to confederation, because it would have been two different entities coming together.
Okay, but how do you talk those who don't believe in the special status to start believing in the possibility for it to deliver?
I think first I have to talk with the government. The government has to implement what they have brought out as a special status. They cannot be implementing it and holding it back. They have to implement all that in a special status. It's a very good thing. If they do, the Anglophones will get around to understanding it. You know that since the thing came out, we have been talking with a group of people, and through social media, we have been trying to change the people's perspective of the thing. But the problem now lies with the government. If you say the powers are taken from the governor, give the powers over to the president of the region. Take those governors, whatever thing you want to do with them. Once those people get out of the way, I'm supposed to buy special status.
Now, you want people to believe in the special status away from the federation. Now, what is the government holding back, according to you?
The government is still naively, they are still afraid that this is something like separation. They want to have a stronghold on the region. They want to talk from the center. But the Anglophones don't want that. Once the Anglophones get liberated to the same way they can talk from their own angle, and take their decisions and develop themselves, Francophones, I mean, the central government will start to get weak. And that's yeah.
Yeah, you are advocating for the special status. You have seen what is being implemented so far. There is a president at the southwestern level and one for the northwest region. I'm talking about the regional assemblies that are operating. Do you have a feeling that they carry any weight? Can they deliver?
Of course they do. You know, that, the first thing that people were unhappy with was that they were given a very mean budget, 33 billion or something like that, which the people did not understand. But now that they are working on their budgets, working on projects which will be implemented after the national budget comes into existence, I think people will see that they are working. And they can only work when they have enough money with them and they are given the leeway to develop themselves.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Azongwara, for contributing in there from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. After this first the launch, what next, Fabrice Lena?
Well, I think the coalition of Federalist activists, groups and activists in Cameroon is at the mobilization stage, sensitization and creation of awareness to tell the people that in every struggle there is plan A, B, C. I think federation is our own plan that we are proposing to the people, that in order to achieve something, you have to always have different plans at different stages of the struggle based on dynamics. One thing that people need to know is that politics is one of the most complex and dynamic disciplines in human existence, that as time changes, its strategies and its dynamics also changes. So we are trying to extend our consultations to all federalist groups, persons, individuals, from the population to victims, that's IDPs, refugees, prisoners, right up to civil society actors, politicians, media personalities, everyone that think that the war can end by federation, because we are advocating that the war can easily end by federation than separation. So it is an alternative voice. So since we believe that the war can easily end by federation than separation, we have to build this momentum, we have to build this voice that will pressurize the Yaoundé regime to accept an alternative voice. One thing people should know is that as some people are tired in the bushes, that's how Yaoundé regime is also tired. Yaoundé regime is tired, and they are also hoping that something alternative can come where we could have a consensus. But they will not be tired to fight for separation, but then they will be tired to accept an alternative. And in that alternative, we can build our power to prepare and enshrine in the constitution the possibility of self-determination. What people don't know is that the constitution of Cameroon is so complex that tagging you a terrorist is very easy by the laws of 2014 and so on and so forth. When I studied the constitution of Ethiopia, I said, wow, Meles Zenawi, who was the president, former prime minister of Ethiopia from 1994, I think, to 2011, the guy was so smart that when he amended the constitution of Tigray to create the federal structure of Tigray that is having today, he put inside the constitution the article of self-determination by groups of people where they could organize referendum and determine to leave the Ethiopian Federation or not. In our own constitution, this is absolutely impossible. So we should not forget these aspects when we want to articulate about our problem. When I read the comment of so many people on Facebook, they are talking about we need a referendum. We need it from who? Right to, I don't know. You people should take emails and contacts of people representing Southern Cameroon or Cameroon in ECAS, African Union, and UN. Write to them whether they will respond you 100 days. They will never. Okay. So we have to look for alternative ways to stop shedding blood. Because some people are always saying that we are gone, we are gone. When? How many local governments are we controlling? How many states are we controlling? How many countries are we having diplomatic accords with them? So all these are questions we need to ask ourselves and then face the reality.
Ndifor Richard, please be brief. 2 minutes. What next after the launch? There's no sound from Ndifor.
Sorry, Leonard, can you get me right now? Okay, good. So I am saying that after this, we are looking at reaching out to more federalist groups, other groups that advocate for federalism, because our doors are open. We want to embrace every federalist group and even reach out to the separatists, because our doors are not shut out to them. We are open to them. We are going to reach out to them. We want to help them to understand that if they truly think that, they truly believe that secession or independence will be granted for West Cameroon, then they are mistaken. So we are open to have this conversation with them, to have a gentleman conversation, because it is only through conversation that we'll be able to convince each other. And if they believe strongly in what they think they're saying, and they think that it is workable, then they should try to convince us, because we are ready to convince them. They should try to convince us. They should not use the gun. The gun is intimidation. It is only there to intimidate, and it is an intimidating tool for the weak, for somebody who stands in a weaker position. If you think that you are standing on a very strong footing, drop your guns and face us, and we have this conversation on a one-on-one basis and see who can convince the other. Okay. So we are open out to them. Then also, we will also be educated. We are going to continue with a lot of education to educate Cameroonians, as West Cameroonians, and even Cameroonians in the larger part, because Francophones think that federalism is separation. So we want to go out there and educate them and let them see the benefits of federalism. And finally, Leonard, we will have to mobilize the national and international community to put pressure on the regime in place to subscribe to a negotiation that would definitely end up with federalism, because we are going to use the constitutional and historical tools to put that argument on the table. Thank you.
Okay. How do you say this?
Well, I think it is not also going to be an easy task, whether we like it or not. I know for sure that with the opinion on the guns on the grounds to change the status quo, it is simply going to be a very tough one. And I'm also aware that you know, for the fact that the government too have been talking about, or the regime rather, I like using the word the regime, because they too are rather very much on the idea of the special status. I think the coalition is going to have it quite tough. However, whatsoever is going to bring back the kind of peace we used to have, yes, we know for sure that there cannot be true peace without justice. But I want to say that because of the divides which we are having amongst the people of the Northwest and Southwest, the people are highly polarized. And once the people are this polarized, it becomes very difficult for you to find a solution to a problem. And it also gives your enemy the opportunity to destroy you the more. I always say this. It was because of the fighting that was ongoing amongst the Southern Cameroonians that caused Ahijo to come to Boya and even make suggestions to the extent where it had to affect the governance of the people at the time. So I want to call on all the Southern Cameroonians, whether home or abroad, remember that if we continue to factionize, or if we continue to make the people in different factions, it is going to be very difficult for us to get solution to this ongoing crisis. Okay. So I think that this is the time for us to give the opportunity for those who can bring other ideas on board. But like I said, as it stands, the coalition for now is still looking for, by my understanding, they are still looking for the nature of persons to have to support this ideology before they will have to sit now and look at what kind of federation should be in place, which of course they have to consider those of the northern parts of Cameroon. If you want to focus only on those on northwest and southwest, please remember that if you are accepted to have your federation and those of the other parts of the country refuse that, they will not want to federate the country, will also be difficult.
Okay,
yes.
We want to say thank you to you, G. Lucas from Boya, and to you, Fabrice Lena from Yaoundé, and also you, Ndifor Richard, who is taking part in today's edition of the program from the United States of America, as well as Azongwara, who took part from Boya. We say we are extremely very grateful for your contributions. We want to thank you all who took time off to watch the program from across the globe, and we also appreciate your contributions on social media, especially those insults. We are glad with them. It's also a proof of our yes, we have to appreciate. Yeah. Yes, we receive the insults with in good faith. We want to thank the production team, Desmond and Eli. We say thank you to you guys. Tambe Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.